That's for sure.
All right,
Okay.
I see it. Thank you. And I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint. And I'm sharing that now. Hopefully everyone can see that. And there's our agenda. And will somebody please call the meeting to order?
I will do that. I am
Thank you.
calling this meeting of the Tier 3 Regionalization Working Group to order. It is 10:04 on August 25th, 2025, and I'm Barbara Neal. We'll be recording the meeting, and the recording will be posted to the task force webpage following the meeting. And let's start with our usual roll call of working group members. Please verbally acknowledge your presence when I call your name. Jim Mack.
Here.
Ron Kumitz.
Here.
Okay. And of course, we have the project management team, Rick, Dom, and Elizabeth from Televate. And
Morning.
that looks to be it for today. Yes, no one else has joined. So are there any changes, Ron or Jim, to the agenda?
No.
Know that from my side.
Okay. We'll consider it approved then and move on to approval of the minutes. These would be from last week's meeting, the 18th, and these, I believe, were distributed by email and are also available on the webpage. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from 8/18?
So moved.
Thank you, Jim.
I will second that.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes from August 18th, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Excellent. The minutes are approved. And Dom, I'll go hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Barb. And good morning, everyone. This is Tier 3 Policy and Operations-Based Regionalization. Today, what we would like to do is we still have some outstanding action items. I'd like to address those and then review the preliminary decisions that the working group has made and review what could be presented to the task force at this Wednesday's meeting. We have been put on the agenda to provide our report this Wednesday, and that's per the schedule you see here. We have 3 working groups ongoing right now, Tier 3, Tier 2, and then governance. Both Tier 2 and Tier 3, we plan on providing a report to the task force at this week's meeting. Governance, we're recommending be extended another couple of weeks before we are prepared to do that. The schedule changes you see in yellow there are what we are currently recommending based on our current status. That has not been approved by the task force yet, so that's why it's in yellow. Not quite official, but that's what we'll propose and hopefully discuss this Wednesday. Again, for Tier 3, the goal of this working group is to determine the priorities and preliminary recommendations related to key areas of policy and operations. You can see the 9 key areas are listed there, 3 each under support, operations, and workforce. And we have recommendations for each of those currently, and we will review those shortly. First, we'd like to review the action items and where we stand on those. And we have some additional slides to cover some of these items. Here are the remaining items, action items that have not been closed. There are a number of them that have a question mark there, hoping we can close them per today's meeting, but we want to address those and confirm that. The first one that is open is action item 6, which is long-term action and to discuss costs for these various approaches. And hopefully we'll get a chance to do that today as we go through our recommendations. Number 11 was to develop a register list of issues that could put dispatching at risk. We did develop an initial list and reviewed that last time. We have that again in the slide deck if we want to review that further. Action item 13 was regarding the Vermont Emergency Dispatch Association. And we did have a meeting with them, determine their goals and objectives. They have established bylaws and have applied for nonprofit status. They did commit to providing some recommendations to the task force, and we'll leave that open until we see those. Just thinking, Rick, we probably need to check back with them to make sure that they're on path to do that.
Sure, I'll reach out today.
Thank you. Action item 16 is also one Rick was handling regarding the tech center. Do you have an update?
Now, the gentleman that I'm supposed to talk to is not back yet from vacation.
Okay.
Coming back the next week.
All right. So we'll leave that open until we can close the loop on that. Action item 18 was for Televate to speak with Mad River Valley. This is regarding remote dispatching.
I'm playing
Ricky?
phone tag with those folks. It's my bad. I should have followed up, but it's on me, and I did not follow up late last week. So I'll call today, and if I find anything of interest there, I'll be sure and share it with the team. We also did speak. Well, I'll wait till we get down there. But one of the reasons the reason we wanted to talk to them about there's a remote dispatching. And we also, in conversation with Mark Doyle of New Hampshire, he shared that they have similar capabilities, and we should follow up with them as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Action item 19 to list potential policies and procedures that are currently in use. And we've had quite a bit of activity here. We had mentioned earlier that based on the inventory report, there were 8 different dispatch centers / PSAPs that indicated they had a policies and procedures manual, although those had not been collected. We reached out last week to ask for some, and we received quite a few. And I'll go through that in a minute there. Next couple of slides lists those. And all of those have been stored on the SharePoint site that DPS maintains for the task force. So we have quite a collection to work with, and I assume that'll be a good initial start for assuming governance board is established and there's a committee associated with policies and procedures. They will have a good initial group of policies to work from. Action item 20 was to look at different levels of fallover and how that should be addressed. Televate did do some recommendations specifically on the technology side as well as the workforce side, and we presented those at our last meeting. I also have those in the slide deck if we want to revisit that. Action item 21 was on the existence of standard job classifications, and MCP does confirm that that information does exist. They have some information. Also, we identified specific websites where example job descriptions are available. Action item 25, Rick, it sounds like you do have an update here regarding New Hampshire.
Yes. So Barb and I had a meeting with Mark Doyle, who is the director of the New Hampshire PSAP, the single PSAP they have, and it was very informative. We had a good dialogue and learned a lot from them. And I'll be happy to document it. I did take notes for the meeting, and I'd be happy to share them with the working group. They do what they do, and they like the way it's arranged. I mean, they have a single PSAP and I believe 67 dispatch centers. And they, it works for them. They according to Mark, they wouldn't do it any other way.
Did you say 67? 67?
67 dispatch centers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does the PSAP transfer all the calls, or does the PSAP do dispatch as well?
They do call transfers. They
Everything.
transfer all the calls.
Okay. All right, interesting. Any questions or additional information on that?
The one thing I learned from them, I learned a lot from Mark, but they have the 911 system there has the CAD system, right? That, correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, that they
Nope,
then
you're right.
provide to the dispatch centers, I think at no cost.
Yeah, that's what it appeared to me. I think they were paying for that out of their 911 fees, but that's what I interpret it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. But it ensures at least that the technology is appropriate to transfer the data. So
does the
So-
call
so-
physically get transferred as well, and then the data is entered into CAD, so all the dispatch centers have access to that data via the same CAD?
that's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Right.
how Mark explained it.
All right, great.
So Barb, on the tier 2 working group, which we met on Friday, Dom and I shared that we were able to get a ROM pricing for a statewide CAD system. It was based on, and I didn't mention the name of the CAD vendor, but it's based on a CAD vendor that the state is already using. Some dispatch centers in the CAD are using, in the state are using, and so the pricing was I thought reasonable. The ROM pricing we received for which would allow all dispatch centers and PSAPs to have a license to use that CAD came within a reasonable less than $2 million budget.
Really?
And that's over a 5-year period.
Over 5 years.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
that's-
Less than 2 million over 5 years.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Rick and I were quite pleased with what we saw. We were almost ready to sign up right then.
Yeah. That's interesting. I would have expected 2 million per year, but I don't know that's just a guess,
Well, if we added the RMS to the product, the pricing over 5 years shot up to 6.5 million.
Yeah, that
So,
was the RMS was quite a bit larger.
Okay.
So the quote for the CAD only would interface with Valcor, would interface with the existing RMS, but there was also
Yeah.
an option to replace that.
Okay. Because I think, well, I guess we don't know what entity would be responsible for a statewide CAD right now would be the Department of Public Safety, I would guess. If that responsibility flowed to this group or a successor group or what have you, I'm not sure. I'm not sure in either case we should be looking at records management systems, right? I mean, we can integrate with them, but I don't know. I don't know what the right way to do that is.
Well, yeah, I think that's the tier 2. That'll be a topic I think tier 2 could foster with the task force, but and fit into the governance. But yeah, I think it's obviously governing it and where it resides and who manages the licensing agreement, however it revolves, certainly is something that will have to be determined.
Yeah.
But I think at this stage of the game, our goal was because as we're going to discuss for tier 3, we wanted to be able to put together a budget, potential budget for the tier 2 recommendations, working group recommendations of the task force. So, we needed to put a budget, and that's why
Right.
we went out and gathered that. Now we do know that the Department of Public Safety is paying for the license, the Valcor license, and I don't know exactly we don't know what that costs, and so we want to be sure that we gather that information from TPS. They are paying for that, but the way we had it architected was that we could either purchase the RMS or we could have the existing Valcor data consumed and posted in as determined best by any of the end users, it could consume that data and post it. So, that we got it. We designed it such that we designed a request for the ROM budget pricing, such that it would also have a CAD to CAD with existing CADs in the state. So we wanted to be sure that that the architecture going forward, assuming that's a direction that the task force recommends and advances, that we would be able to build bridges to Valcor and to our existing CAD systems if someone decided not to convert to whatever the future statewide CAD might be.
One thing I can check with Jen on this again. I may have it in my notes somewhere. The Valcor contract expires at some point, I think in the not too distant future. And I believe the plan was to extend that contract for whatever is
I
allowed.
believe she has said previously it expires the end. I think it's next year. I think it's the end of 26.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But that would be good for you to confirm that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if that's the case, we should consider, in my opinion, we should consider whether or not we want to extend that, or if we would have enough time to potentially procure a different CAD.
Well, I
Right.
think there's a couple of things to consider. The first one is, we look at the extra $2.5 million for RMS over 5 years, but at the moment we're all sitting here scratching our heads as to what we're currently paying for Valcor. And maybe after we find out what we're paying for Valcor and what we wouldn't be paying for Valcor and could apply to the RMS, it's not so much money after all.
Right.
The second part of this is that I think that there should be some strategy here to avoid having the state go ahead and pursue a long-term, like 5-year contract to renew Valcor if the solution that we're looking at ultimately would not include Valcor. The way that I would approach that, for my own business dealings, is to say, look, this is up in the air, and we're not sure what direction we're going, but we'll renew it a year at a time or something like that. So that we're not locked
Right.
in to the current hodgepodge system for a long period of time. And then the third part of this is that, after doing some digging, I was happy to see that, from the FCC standpoint, money that are collected with the fees that currently support E911 can be used to pay for anything from the time you answer the phone to the time that the information hits the ears of the first responders. I mean, it literally says that in their findings. So
Right.
I think that's something to consider as well.
On that note, I did see that come through, Ron, and I was actually part of that FCC strike force that helped define some of or strike team, whatever they called it. I can't remember.
Did they give you a black SUV for that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was expecting, It's pretty cool. Anyway, there was a lot of discussion around, the appropriate use of 911 fees so that 911 entities or actually states did not end up in the fee diverter pile per the FCC by using 911 fees for something other than 911. And so that clarification cleared all of that up as far as whether or not your state is a fee diverter. In Vermont, there would need to be changes to this statute for what the Vermont Universal Service Fund funds can be used for. Right now, it does specify 911, of course, and several other entities and programs. And then once the money is transferred into what's called the Enhanced 911 Special Fund, there is restrictions in statute on what those funds can be spent on. fortunately, there's also a provision in the statute that says the 911 funds can be spent on demonstration projects that the board has deemed are appropriate for improving first response or improving emergency response. So that allows us to have a little bit of flexibility with how those funds can be used, assuming the funds are there in the first place. So anyway, there would need to be some work done in Vermont on the statutes and on the amount that the VUSF brings in. Right now, they just changed it from a percentage per telecommunications charges on your phone to a per line fee, and
Right.
it upped the amount that it collects to, I think, just over 7 million. And of course, right now, 911 chews up the biggest part of that. We're at 5.4 million annually. So anyway, there would need to be a lot of adjustments.
Is there, I assume it's somewhere buried in the FCC regulations is some cap of some sort on what can be charged, or is that purely up to the discretion of the state?
I believe that's totally up to the discretion of the state. I don't think
believe
the
that's true.
FCC set any limits or
Right.
restraints on that.
I mean, one of the big points is that people complain about all kinds of stuff, but then they go and they get the newest iPhone, and they really don't pay much attention to what they're paying for their cell phone bill. It seems that is something that's non-optional with them. So, just in the amount of money they pay that way is least likely to result in friction. Whereas if people have to pay 2 cents extra on their property tax bill, they are like ringing the phone at the governor's office off the hook.
Right.
So Mark Doyle from New Hampshire shared with us that they just raised their 911 to $1 from 75 cents. It was the first raise in 10 years. So the way that Vermont's has revised it, the way Vermont's previously was a percentage of the total bill. So it was a percentage, and now it's a fixed fee per line.
Right. I think
But
it's
ours
70.
is still 72 cents, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're at 72, they're at $1. And we just increased ours this beginning. That increases beginning 2026, Barb?
Yeah, it began just this past July 1. Yep.
All right.
Well, I mean, not taking out my calculator, it would seem that that if we're charging 72 cents per line, and we're getting $7 million into that fund, then increasing it, you wouldn't have to increase it even to, the dollar level to get the money for the CAD system and possibly even the RMS system.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe what we need to do is also explore, what other states, particularly in our region, are charging for those fees, so that as we throw out, some of this information, we can say, look, like charging $1 apparently is reasonable. The New Hampshire taxpayers and phone owners haven't converged on the Capitol with pitchforks and torches, so this is something we need to consider.
There was a report written by Joint Fiscal when this change was being considered, moving from the percentage to the per line fee, that I think might have some of the information you just talked about, Ron. What neighboring states or other states are doing. I can try to find that and send it out.
Thank you, Barb.
The challenge with that is that if we just had an increase go into effect July 1st, I don't think that anyone in the legislature will have appetite for raising it anytime soon, to be honest with you.
Well, I
That's
mean,
probably true.
in the big picture, I don't think that the legislature's really got an appetite for raising any taxes, fees, or whatever to fund anything that we recommend. So I think that if we present something to them that's reasonable and palatable, and has worked, at levels that work in other states, that maybe it gives them an out. Because once again, anything that affects the property tax bill is going to result in, they're going to need some talcum powder for that.
I wouldn't disagree with you. Vermont's is still probably one of the lowest in the country at 72 cents.
Interesting.
And realistically speaking, I mean, from a point of fairness, everybody has a phone. Some people have multiple phones. I mean, it is perhaps not politically correct to make this observation, but I see homeless people standing on a corner of Shelburne Road with giant smartphones. So apparently, this is something that's a focus on people's lives, and they don't complain much about the price of it, whereas other things they do. I think that's just where we are in 2025.
Right.
So not to draw attention to those who are on the street homeless and have a phone, there are a couple of FCC programs that provide either free or nearly free service to phone service to to financially disadvantaged individuals.
Okay, our last action item was on summarizing what other states have done regarding legislative action and language with regards to reclassification of first responders. And we did provide information on that. There's a link there for a NINA site, which has a map of states that have taken individual action, and you can click on each one and identify what action they've taken. And we do have, I believe we have that slide included today as well, which we can discuss further if necessary. But to move on to some of the follow-up from the action items, these are the policies that we did receive. And first, we received a whole bunch from Hartford.
Hey, Dom,
yeah.
Before you go on, I'm sorry to butt in, but before you go on, I just wanted to revisit that statement that Ron made. Is the working group, should we document the working group's recommendation, a recommendation of suggesting the legislature increase the 911 fee? I don't want to bounce away from it before documenting that.
I think it could be listed as a possibility. I'm not sure I'm ready to recommend it until I understand exactly, well, frankly, how it would impact the 911 program, right? I have to be certain of how it will impact that. Sure. But I don't think it's unreasonable to say it's among the options for funding.
Thank you very much.
Jim or Ron?
I think we're. Go ahead, Ron.
Jim. No, go ahead, Jim.
We're talking about it's going to be $2 million for a CAD system, $4 million for records management, and all these other things are going to have costs associated with it. I don't think it would hurt us to throw out a recommendation that we might need to increase that fee to help find revenue to pay for some of these things that we're talking about. And I agree with Ron. you're not going to be able to throw that back on the property tax, whether it be directly to the property tax in each town or through whatever the dispatch centers are going to be allowed to charge the various towns.
And I think you'd also get some buy-in from, like the local officials there, because the reality is that we're currently all paying a lot of this dispatch stuff through our property taxes, and they're not willing to see that go up because it creates strife for them. So I think it's really the most realistic place, and it distributes the burden over everybody that's got a call that can call 911 instead of, just property tax payers.
Yeah. I'm still good with.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You go.
No, I was just going to say I'm still. I understand the logic of it, and I'm not ready to commit that that's the only way forward. But I don't have an alternative. So I think it's a good thing to be considering.
I don't disagree. There may be other options for how we find revenue. I don't know what those are, but I think there should be something in there saying, we need to look at some form of generating revenue to help pay for these things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, realistically speaking, $2 million, is not a huge amount of money. There may be even some niche in a grant program that we could exploit to get that money to move forward on this, at least to get it moving initially. The question is where to look for it.
Right.
Put a tariff on Vermont maple syrup.
There you go.
You keep going there, right?
That would probably cause a
$1
revolt because it's so expensive now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd pay another $1 for it.
Yeah.
The only thing I use is Vermont maple syrup. My refrigerator's always had a bottle.
Yes.
It's worth every penny. It's liquid gold.
All right, Rick, do you got what you want? Should we move on?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for
Okay.
letting me intrude into your presentation.
Not a problem. Again, one of the action items was on policies and procedures, and like I mentioned, we got a whole bunch from Hartford. First, we got these. I think there's about 40 here. That's each individually listed, and again, these are on the SharePoint site now and available for review. I can say I have not reviewed all of them, to be honest. But there are a number there. And then also, we got additional ones from Colchester, Essex, and then from VSP, we got a bunch as well. I did not list all those individually. Got those at the end of last week, but they provided a zip file with 29 policies and procedures, as well as what they call work rules. And there were 5 of those. So we've got quite a collection now. And I think this was, very helpful. The other items we had presented last week.
Before you go on, hey, Don, before you go on.
Yeah.
So is there an action here from the working group for Televate to review, summarize, catalog any of these policies? I mean, certainly leveraging existing policies that would, with minor maybe edits for a given dispatch center or PSAP, that to customize it for them. I mean, this is really a good body of work that's out there. Suggest that we leverage it somehow. I don't know what the recommendation would be from the working group on these items, but we have time between now and the Wednesday presentation to do some additional work on this, but I'm just curious what the working group's position on these and how to potentially leverage them.
I don't know. It
Okay.
seems like a lot for the working group
It's
to
a
take
lot.
on, but yeah.
In my opinion was it would be a body of work that, again, a subcommittee of the governance body would utilize to begin to call through these and
Yep.
determine which would best be appropriate for defining best practices for statewide use.
Yeah, I think,
That
yeah,
kind of
I think
kicks the can down the road a little bit, but I think that's where it's the most appropriate.
I think that makes sense, Dom.
Any
Jim
other
or
opinions?
Ron?
I would look at this as being just information to pass on to whatever future policy committee is creating any of this general standard policies.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's correct, and I think we'll get, if all this information and stuff was passed to like a dispatch working group composed of dispatchers and dispatch supervisors and stuff, that we'll get a whole lot more buy-in from it than if any of it is processed by us or someone other than the dispatchers. I think that allowing them to pick their own poison, so to speak, is the best route.
So maybe it's something that we could engage with Liz's group on, or a future working group could
Right.
do that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
Works
good
for
point.
me.
It would probably be helpful to share that with them, that we've collected this information.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, you have any further follow-up?
The
No,
only
I'm good.
the only thing I would add to this is, pass this on to whatever future committee does this with this and the APCO and NINA standards, that they can develop out what a general policy procedure for us guidelines would be moving forward.
Right.
I'm
Rick,
good, Don. Thank
anything
you,
further?
everybody.
Okay.
No, I'm sure that we document it. I've got it.
Right.
Thanks.
Do we have any?
Side note, I just put a link to that joint fiscal committee report in the chat. It's been a long time since I've looked at that report, so it may cover some of the things Ron brought up, but may not be all.
Thank you.
This is review of some of the previous work we reviewed last week. If there's any additional discussion or additions, we talked about items potentially putting dispatchers at risk. There was also the mission critical failover, redundancy and failover items to be considered, both at a technology level and at the workforce level. And then we also discussed areas for resources regarding job classification and listings. And then the information on states that have taken some action to reclassify or provide additional benefits to telecommunicators. that completes the action item review, unless there are other questions or comments.
Yeah, I'd like to share, again, coming from our conversation with Mark Doyle. He shared with us, let me pull up my notes here, but he shared with us that the dispatchers in New Hampshire had a similar request, to be classified as a professional organization, as a professional group, and he said that they had engaged their community in that discussion, and one of the reasons why they haven't yet classified, made the recommendations for that reclassification was that the dispatchers they did not have in place a certification, a defined certificate. How do I get certified? And I think that we want to share that. I don't know how we feel about that, but they felt that their legislature, felt that there were certification requirements for law enforcement, for fire, and for call takers, and for others, and the fact that they did not yet have a certification protocol process, X amount of training, up front and reoccurring training, who would train them and certify them, police academy, fire academy. So I think that it's worthy of having a conversation with the Dispatch Association. I don't know if that could be that if Vermont's legislature would come up with a similar requirement, or if the working group feels that also should be considered. I don't know, but I wanted to share that we had that conversation with Mark Doyle of New Hampshire, and what he advised us that New Hampshire had done, and what their legislature has what requires of the dispatchers in order for them to reclassify them.
And they don't have a certification process for dispatchers in New Hampshire.
They don't.
Okay. All right.
No.
And that's been an obstacle to the reclassification.
That's exactly right. Yeah, a lot fewer words. Thank you for
Yeah, no, I wanted to make sure I was remembering it right. And
I don't know how I don't know how that affects the working group's recommendation, but I think we agreed that we would support that. But do we support it with a similar recommendation or notation, or do we just let the legislature try to figure that out, or discuss with the association what their thoughts are? Well, another reason for bringing this up is that, as we mentioned earlier on an action item that we hadn't closed yet, is that we were waiting for the Dispatch Association to provide us a list of their recommendations, and I don't know if they would. We know that they would. They prefer, and their strong preference was to be reclassified as a first responder to achieve some of the benefits that some of these other 19 states have achieved. And so, I don't know what the working group's position is. I mean, we could follow up and ask what or we could recommend to the association that they put together, their own list so that we could review it. I'm not sure exactly what you think, but I didn't want to lose sight of what we had learned out of New Hampshire for doing something similar, and how their legislature reacted to it.
As far as the Dispatch Association, I think they'd like to see the reclassification, number one. Number two, the general consensus that I've heard from all the meetings is they'd like to see some type of certification program as well.
All right, good.
I think the question for me right now, I mean, I do believe that there should be a certification process. I mean, that's what we've had with 911 since day one, and I think that's of value. I worry about unfunded mandates, so we would have to know what these programs would cost. And the jury's still out for me on whether or not it should be a certification requirement that's outlined in statute, or if it's something that's outlined more like the board has, which is through policy and rulemaking. I'm not sure which is better or which is more appealing to the people that will be impacted and the agencies that will be impacted. But there has to be a way to pay for it, you know.
Yes. Okay, that completes the action item review. Now, I'd like to move into the work item summary. And this is potentially the information that we would present to the task force as part of the working group report. And it's in a specific formula or format where we have the individual work items, we have the options that were presented by MCP in their report, and then we have either a preferred option as identified by the working group or some alternative option, as well as some comments associated. And we probably need to discuss potential costs involved with those as well. In addition to this, I'll skip around a little bit, summary that looks like this, which I just described. We are also looking at putting together more of a development or work plan for each of these items, and a detailed plan as to how to arrive at the preferred recommendation. You'll see here this spreadsheet shows the individual work items here on the left, what the recommendation would be coming out of the working group, listing a priority, a strategy, maybe different steps required to implement the actual requirements in order to implement that strategy, a potential capital investment, the workforce requirements, and investment associated with that, as well as a potential schedule. That's what we believe could be a more of a detailed plan to implement these recommendations. Rick, do you have any further comments on that?
Yeah, our thinking here, Barb, Jim, and Ron, is that, and we shared this this approach with Tier 2. So Ron and Jim have heard this already. But our thoughts here is that making recommendations to the legislature is essentially the work of the task force. We also believe that why not have a plan to achieve these objectives, instead of coming out of the work that we're all doing. And this approach here would be to both create a plan and a schedule for that plan, based on your recommendations, that the working group would come out of this with this more detailed information. Now, we've begun crafting one of these for Tier 2 that has a lot more depth, and we haven't done that for the Tier 3 working group yet. But we wanted to share this with you. This is more than just recommendation. This is a plan to achieve the to achieve the recommendations of the task force, and it'll be a kind of a list of the steps that have to be undertaken, a list of the capital requirements, the workforce requirements, and budgetary capital and ongoing operating costs to achieve those. And we don't have all those answers yet, but how to do this, I think, it's really, from my opinion, it's a logical set of activities that can be undertaken. And that would show the legislature that not only are we making recommendations, but we have a plan in place to advance them into the next phase. And our thinking was that this would have value for the working group's recommendations.
I like it. I like it. Was that the response in tier 2 as well?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it feels organized and meaningful, right? I mean, these are steps that can actually be taken to advance this conversation by whatever group, this one or others.
I'm glad you all feel that way, and we obviously we won't have this done by the task force meeting, but we can populate it. We do need some guidance on how to publish it, because some of this activity might raise interest and inquiries from a vendor community. And so, what we'll need some guidance from you all on, as we populate it, what do we do with it? Because in my opinion, this may not be prudent to present to the public yet, because it is, it could support future procurements and maybe, and I'm just not sure what Vermont public notification information, how that would affect whatever we do with this. So any guidance, Barb, you could provide, that would be helpful.
Okay, let me think about that. If the concern is that premature publication of this information might put the task force or the state at a disadvantage in future contract procurements or contract negotiations or any of that, then I will check with legal. But my understanding is that would be a valid exemption from public records requests. But we'd want to make sure that we clearly understood if that was the case and to what degree that's the case, how much of it would need to be withheld. So let me ponder that.
All right, thanks for that. So in the meantime, we may populate, but we're not going to distribute until we get that guidance.
Okay.
All right, moving on to the actual work items and recommendations. First work item was the standardized QA. There were 3 options, again, provided by MCP. The working group's preference was for option 1 to essentially option 1 augmented would be to establish a standard common QA statewide policy via a governance subcommittee. So one thing we had previously done in the working group 2 would be to note where what the costs would be associated with this, or what the effort would be. So in this case, the cost would be as part of the governance work, part of governance subcommittee work.
Okay.
And apology for not having filled this in previously, but just getting to that. Under the support and administrative roles, the working group's preference was for option 3 to identify specific support roles, possibly related to administrative roles. We specifically identified those administrative, some HR duties, alarm activation, records management, could be shared on a regional basis. But this would potentially be based on what the tier 1 regionalization approach would be as well. Costs associated with this. Let's see. It's this I see is going to be based on what the tier 1 regionalization plan would be. So I don't know if there's anything specific we can identify here in terms of potential costs or even cost savings. Anybody have any input on this?
I think my input is just that I agree that we don't really know. We
Yeah.
don't know what the
That's it.
cost would be. And I'm stuck on your comment about cost savings. You know,
There could potentially be cost savings based on the regionalization plan.
right.
So maybe we ought to try and highlight that.
So we're looking at this like from the future state perspective, where things have been regionalized, presumably to some degree. This right now would not be any work that would even be useful for the way we're set up now. Right? I mean, Shelburne isn't
I
going to
believe-
share HR with VSP and St. Albans, and
No, but I know there's
Mhm.
been an effort within my town government to share services with other neighboring towns
okay,
with, whether it be HR services or planning and zoning, that type of stuff. I know those discussions are occurring. Some
okay,
things have taken place.
all right. So I'm wrong on that then. Maybe you would be sharing that kind of support with others. So interesting.
So I think there's a push now by some town boards to start moving in that direction because some towns really can't afford a planning and zoning administrator.
Right.
So they're looking to the other town to perform those duties for them.
I wonder if this is something Vermont League of Cities and Towns would have input on. You know, maybe they see the bigger picture of how this is happening statewide or throughout the state.
Yeah, they probably have more information on it.
Right.
I just know from one of my meetings with one of my select board members about, consolidation and so forth.
Yep. Interesting. Okay.
Any other comments? Okay, moving
Well,
on.
only if I could just add, please, Tom, sorry, that we were advised that the state police were doing some of these activities regarding warrants. And
Previously, right.
yeah, previously.
Yeah.
And so they was shared with us that, they'd be happy to have that level of support again. Not that the, state police are willing to take it on, but that was a shared responsibility, or that was one of these administrative activities that was provided to them that is no longer being provided. So that was they've taken that back in-house.
Got it.
The next group of work items included these here, GIS, and the working group concluded that essentially option 2 is essentially ongoing today. So the recommendation is to maintain option 2 as today. So those right now, those costs are they part of the E911 budget, Barb?
Well, yeah, for maintaining the GIS data would be that the 911 system uses. If towns, municipalities were to come to us about including specific information, we just consider those requests on a case by case, and I guess it's just kind of part of business as usual, right? It wouldn't be unless there was some massive project. But I think we would consider it all part of business as usual.
Okay, thank you. On policies and procedures, the working group's preference was towards option 2, noting, of course, that those would be development of policies and procedures for dispatch. Call taking already exists. Costs for this activity would be, again, part of the governance subcommittee work, as I see it. Any other thoughts?
I think, didn't we say option 2 is like the starting point but then eventually we'd want to get towards option 3? Or actually, maybe I'm just, I might be contradicting what I just said a few minutes ago about whether legislative action is the way to go.
There were some options where we had that, or some items where we had that option 2 initially transitioned to option 3. I don't recall that being this being one of those.
Okay.
No, I think we steered clear of it because of the legislative action.
Right. Okay.
And protocols, the working group's preference again was for option 2, with the state and local collaboration, again, recognizing existing call taking protocols exist. And I believe these costs would also be included with the any governance subcommittee work. Having a little bit of a formatting issue. I'll come back and get fix that. Is that accurate, or is there further information we need? Okay, moving on to planning.
Before you go on, Dom, I just want to bring up, Barb, you were on the governance committee, of course, out of this, the 3 members of this working group. And, when we make the comment, or the recommendation that the cost, and the completion of this work would be completed under the state governance, that what we're also saying there is that governance would have to have some administrative funding to advance that. So
right.
While the activity would be performed as part of our overall governance, there would be some volunteer work involved, obviously, for working group members, and also some administrative support to ensure that the work actually is tracked and the working groups are provided the support they need to do their work. So that's really what we're saying here. And so we're kind of kicking the cost and the can over to the governance.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah. So I just want to be sure that, that's what we're all in agreement. That's what we're saying here. We're not diverting or trying to abandon this cause. We're recommending that this is how to best achieve this. And as Ron has pointed out multiple times during this discussion, that the bottom up approach, where a state members of the local and state community develop these, advance these is good. It's good practice, best practice.
Yes.
And so, I want to be sure that that's when we say that's what we're agreeing to.
I agree with what you just said. I think
Okay.
the governance group, ultimately, whoever is going to be overseeing this animal is going to have to take all of these recommendations from the various working groups and prioritize them again, right? Within
Yes.
the fuller body of work. So I think that's what Rick just said, right?
Yep, exactly.
And I think the next work item falls in under that same category, planning, where option 2 is the preference for statewide training and workshops on planning initiatives and leadership. So this would also, I believe, be covered as part of the governance subcommittee work. And similarly for recruiting and hiring with regarding standard job classifications. We've identified some resources to go to identify specific examples and job classification skills and requirements. So here, I believe similarly, we would assume the governance group does have some type of subcommittee associated with staffing and hiring, which would review those resources and provide some options for job descriptions. Does everyone agree with that assessment?
Yes.
Yes.
And our final on the working items for this group was one standardized training.
Yeah. This
So
is the one I
here,
was thinking of. Yeah.
I believe so, yes. Preference was for option 2 initially, and then transitioning to option 3, where there was a statewide certification program.
Yeah. And I guess I kind of tie this to the policy and procedure work item, because part of a statewide certification program would be to learn about those, the established policies and procedures. So those could either be established at the state level or statewide governance level, or we do this a lot where we refer people back to their local protocols. So at any rate, I guess I was seeing both of this and the policies as sort of tied together.
I'll try and capture that, yes. And then
Hey, Barb, if I could just engage you a little bit further on this one. So I'm look back at what the E911 board is doing for training of the call takers, and that's a pretty formalized plan that you have and requirements and procedure that you have there. So I'm wondering, what we can learn from that for, sharing with regarding, the standardized training and for new hires and current employees here. I mean, you have a similar requirement for your call takers, if I'm not mistaken. And is there anything we can learn from what you're currently doing with call takers that could be advantageous, that could support this effort here for similar for the dispatch training? You're on mute, Barb.
Sorry about that. I think there definitely is something to learn. I mean, the fundamentals of the 40-hour telecommunicators class are essentially the same, whether you're a dispatcher or a 911 call taker, though in our version of the certification course, we don't go anywhere near how to talk on the radio, what 10 codes to use, or whether to use plain English or whatever. We don't do that. But we do work with Liz's group when they do a basic dispatch school to kind of bring together what's happening on 911 as they're learning about dispatch, good practices for dispatch procedures. So, and all of our training and certification requirements are based on the relevant NINA or APCO standards that are out there to the extent that they apply to 911. So I think NINA and APCO standards are really who sets the bar for these things. And I would recommend to any group that they be used as a resource to build a program. Did that answer your question at all?
Absolutely, fully. Yep. The reason I'm asking these questions is that, as we provide guidance, some information that's going to guide the presentation to the task force, we might, put in a few, I might want to highlight a few of these comments. That's why I'm asking these questions, so that as this working group is making its, recommendations to the task force, that there's a couple of bullet items that you might have available to that you could also, share with the task force.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Our final work item was under staffing, and we looked at the various items. The working group's preference was to use a hybrid, essentially pursue a hybrid staffing approach using the shared resources in the physical location as opposed to taking the leap right away to remote dispatching. That would be also somewhat based on the physical regionalization approach, physical being the tier 1, of course. Based on what comes out of the tier 1 recommendation and any type of regionalization that is recommended, there'd be potentially costs or potential, I got to believe here as well, there'd be potential cost savings based on and I do want to say tier 1 here. But certainly in my mind, this has to be based on what the regionalization, tier 1 regionalization plan is, whether there are further regionalization of the regional dispatch centers or some type of consolidation. It has to take that into effect. I don't know if there's anything further in terms of cost, and there were findings in the MCP report in terms of potential cost savings with staffing. Maybe we can review that report and put some of those potential numbers in here.
That would make sense. Yeah.
I'll take the action to update that with those potential numbers. But of course, again, that's going to be based on what the regionalization plan is. And of course, that hasn't been addressed yet. That's what we have in terms of the work item summary. So essentially, we have 4 slides. This is what at least our recommendation would be in terms of the report to the task force. And that's similar to the decision that was made at the tier 2 group to provide to the task force at the next meeting. Is that what we want to do here as well? Would be to have one of the working group members present these work item summaries and working group's recommendations, and then certainly for everyone to provide additional comment and detail as appropriate.
Works That works for me.
Yeah.
I think it works for me. I like the way you present stuff, Dom. So, but yeah,
That's because he's got a radio announcer voice.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, it just feels very well organized, and I'm not sure I would feel comfortable being the one to present all this because I'm not going to be able to provide the depth of information that might be needed.
certainly,
But
we're
whatever
happy.
works best for the group is fine.
Well, we're happy to support at any level. You know, provide the additional information if someone does present, or you know, however you want to handle it.
Well, seems like Jim and Ron are comfortable with one of us presenting. Is that right?
Yeah, we were all going to select you.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we were. No, I mean, I'm comfortable with having
Yeah.
one of them, having Dom, you know, present it. He's
I
got,
don't-
you know, he's got screen sharing skills, and he's got the radio announcer voice. So I
Right.
think he'd do a good job.
And I
Either way
think
works for me.
okay. I think we should all be ready to, you know, be ready to answer any questions or provide, you know, our thoughts on any of these individual things as we go through. But I would be most comfortable if Dom did it.
All right. Well, I'm happy to do that.
Excellent.
And if you'll be chairing, Barb, then you can call on me to do that.
There you go. That's right. Take it away, Dom.
I will add in, as I mentioned, add in some costs here that were developed by MCP and the staffing area. Are there any other additions that we can think of that should be added in? Certainly, if you have any, please let us know, and we'll update these slides prior to Wednesday.
I think we've got it covered very nicely. That we're gonna have these recommendations presented and also tier 2 presented right on Wednesday.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
And then what? So we'll discuss the recommendations. And then I guess at the end of all of the working groups, we'll have some comprehensive list of recommendations that the task force then
Right.
considers all at once. Is that how they'll do that, or?
I guess that's open for discussion, certainly. As we discussed previously in tier 2, there may be specific items that the larger task force might want the working group to go back and look into further detail. And
Okay.
if so, we would, you know, schedule additional meetings to do that. I guess right now I don't see a need for an additional meeting of this working group unless additional information is requested.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. So we're going to present to the task force, find out if they have any follow-up direction, right? And then go from there.
Right. And then potentially, once all working groups have provided their information and the task force has confirmed, you know, their either agreement with the recommendation or alternative, then we might proceed to, you know, to this level to start developing them to further detail, which we can provide to the legislature.
Okay. Great.
Jim, I guess I'll ask you, at tier 2, we had talked about you presenting. If I'm going to do the presenting here, would you be comfortable? I'll just do both of them.
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, I'll make sure my voice is warmed up for Wednesday. Any other, let's see, any other items for today? Well, let's go back to the action item or the agenda.
Right.
Let's see, no one else joined us, right? Looks like nobody else joined.
Nobody else joined, so we do not need We've talked about next
Public comment.
steps. We talked about we don't need a meeting unless the task force has more work for us. No public comment. Does anybody else have anything for today? All right. I think we did a lot of good work here. Thank you, Jim and Ron and Rick and Dom and Elizabeth and everybody for getting us through what seemed like this vast amount of information. But I did, even though I didn't want to be the one to present things, I do feel like I have a much better understanding of everything that was presented in this section on the MCP report. So
Great,
a
excellent.
lot of work, but useful. So,
Right. Oh, and one other point, we do have some open action items, so we'll continue to work those, and we can provide updates via email as we get additional information.
Yep, that's fine. That'll be fine. We'll just want to make sure we don't get to like a discussion via email of the stuff. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
All right. I think then if Jim or Ron, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ron.
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All right. All in favor of adjourning for today, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. All right. We are done for today. Looking forward to Wednesday. Thanks again, Rick and Dom and Elizabeth for all your putting together of things on all of this.
Right.
So appreciate
Thank
it.
you for the
Pleasure.
opportunity. But congratulations to all you guys. You know, this working group covered a lot of bases, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I was really pleased with the stakeholder involvement. I mean,
Yes.
this is the first meeting. We really didn't have any participation, and we haven't necessarily had the level of participation in this tier, in this working group that we've had in others. And I think, that's a testament that this is a topic very important to the dispatch community and to the state. And I think we did, we covered a lot of ground and a lot of important and valuable recommendations. So great work. Thank
Great.
you.
Yes. Thank you all. All right. Have a good one. We'll talk to you all soon.
All right. Bye.
All right, have a
Talk
good
to you
day.
later. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.